his situation hasn't gotten better. That's for sure. And I don't know that the back and forth back then, what was that, 3 weeks ago, helped much. And you do wonder if it's the point of no return now. And, the trouble is, Rich, I know that the Colts are resolute that they're not going to give him away. So, then the question becomes, like, what if he goes out and finds a team that's willing to give him what he wants monetarily, right? And say that's, I don't know, $12, $13, $14 million a year. And then that team is not willing to go to where the Colts want them to go from a compensation standpoint. Wouldn't that make the situation worse?
Oh, yeah.
Because now Jonathan Taylor isn't guessing anymore that they're keeping him from getting paid, that they're keeping him from getting paid. Now he knows, right? So that's what's complicated about this whole thing now is, like, this could bring it to a conclusion one way or the other. It could be that Jonathan Taylor finds that, what he wants isn't out there for him, or it could lead to a trade. But there's this in-between thing where, I certainly think, having talked to, a whole bunch of teams overnight, I polled, I think, 10, 11 executives last night on what his trade value would be. And, I can just tell you, like, when you add the fact that you have to give him a new contract to it, I'm not sure the trade value is quite what the Colts would accept at this point. Now, maybe that'll change, but yeah, this is definitely in a very, very awkward spot.
I kind of feel like we're getting bookends to our non-playing season, Albert. This rings similar to Lamar Jackson. Do we want Lamar? Sure.
Yeah.
How much is it going to cost? And 2 ones? I don't know. Like, that's the way it appears. That obviously Jonathan Taylor's not a free agent technically, although he has been given the opportunity to seek a trade like he is a free agent, knocking on anybody's doors legally. Mm-hmm. But the question is compensation and compensation for the Colts. So let's take this one step at a time. Why won't the Colts pay Jonathan Taylor something, or have they offered? And that's been part of the impasse as well, that Jonathan Taylor only wants a contract similar to what he might get on the open market. What do you think, Albert?
I mean, to this point, they haven't, as far as I know, and maybe things changed in the last few days. As far as I know, there hasn't been like a substantial offer made. Now, again, that might have changed in the last few days, and maybe that's what prompted this. But it sounds to me like the Colts were resolute on saying we're waiting until next year. And part of that, of course, is the way this has gone over the last month, where he's coming off an ankle surgery to begin with. The question whether or not he had a back injury is obviously one that's been disputed. But like whether that's a question that's out there, and that's something else that you throw another log on the fire. And I think at this point, like it's the Colts would feel more comfortable going through the year with him. And Jonathan Taylor knows. I mean, look, if you're Jonathan Taylor and you have all that mileage on your legs, and think about the amount of carries that he had over his first 5 years, then he gets hurt in year 6, right? So his first 3 years at Wisconsin, his first 2 years at the pros, how much he carried the ball. He stayed healthy. He was consistent, reliable, all that. Finally gets hurt in that 6th year of college and pro, right? And, now, he is probably looking around and saying, well, Saquon Barkley was patient. Josh Jacobs was patient. And it didn't really work out for those two. So why should I be patient, Things, I'm sure part of it for him is the concern that if he gets hurt again, it's really going to damage his value. And that, by the way, doubles is the reason why maybe the Colts would be hesitant. And that's what makes this thing a little bit, I would say, tough for both sides. And
can you give me an indication? Is it Jim Irsay saying no and Ballard playing shuttle diplomacy to make this work? Or is Ballard, truly saying, we're not paying you any more money? Or did they put anything on the table? I'm trying to suss out why we have reached this point, Albert.
Well, they've been pretty clear in that and saying that we're willing to talk about a contract after this year and not before the year. I think if you look at their history, they have taken care of a lot of the guys that Ballard's drafted there, right? Like, so they made Quentin Nelson wait until after his 4th year, but they paid him at the top of the market. Darius Leonard got paid after his 3rd year. So, like, they've paid guys that they've drafted there after 3 years, and then there have been other guys where they've let it run out, like guys that they really like. Bobby Okereke is a good example of it, a guy who was a really good player for them for 4 years, and now he's on the Giants, because they decided we're going to let this play out, and we can't invest any more in that position, and so we'd be happy to keep him, but we're going to see where this goes after a 4th year, and you see what happened there. So yeah, Rich. I mean, the indications I've gotten are that at this point, at least, the Colts have been in lockstep on waiting until after year 4, and I will plead ignorance on. I'm not quite sure whether or not Chris has any sort of issue with his owner's public stance on that. Possible he does. I just haven't heard that.
Well, I would just imagine, Anthony Richardson's been drafted. Steichen's been hired. Like, let's roll. Like, let's see what this can happen. Like, when you drafted Anthony Richardson on the night in Kansas City, you're sitting here thinking, all right, him, Jonathan Taylor, and our new coach that just did what he did with Jalen Hurts, let's go. Like, that's it. Let's roll.
And that's what I think so hard about it. Like, to me, it's, you look at the position Shane Steichen's been put in. You know what I mean? Like, he's trying to establish a culture and build a program and all those different things. And now, like, the owners at loggerheads with maybe one of the most respected guys in the locker room, one of the best players in the team. It's hard, when you're trying to set standards and say, like, this is what we'll reward, and then you've got this guy over here, and I was at their practice today, and he's standing with a hoodie pulled up over his head and, like, just looks like uncomfortable being there. You know what I mean? Like, it's really hard when, like, players look over, again, at, like, one of the most respected guys in the locker room and see that. And then, like you said, like, what better friend would there be for a young quarterback than having Jonathan Taylor next to you? When we saw what having Todd Gurley did for Jared Goff in L.A., we saw what having Zeke Elliott at the peak of his powers did for Dak Prescott in Dallas when they came in together. Even like Ryan Tannehill, who's a veteran, but having Derrick Henry next to him did a lot to help resuscitate Ryan Tannehill's career in Tennessee. You can talk all you want. You can talk till you're blue in the face about running back value and the risk in paying guys and everything else. If you're paying $12 or $13 million to put a premier player right next to your quarterback that's going to help you take the burden off of that quarterback and help you develop that quarterback, I think it's an investment well made. But, obviously there are some people that disagree with that.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.